Hi everyone. Welcome to Nevada Women's Film Festival Program 13 Live Q&A. I'm Veronica Castillo, and I'm also joined by Jemsen Yumico Bollozos, who's helping me run the event and Zoom. Both of us are co-founders of Eccentric Artists, and this year we are part of the executive committee for Nevada Women's Film Fest. I'm so excited to be introducing our moderator for today. She's actually one of our founding mothers and board members of Eccentric Artists. Of course, I'm talking about Samantha Rodriguez. Sam is a Latinx filmmaker currently working as a freelance camera assistant and producer in Las Vegas, Nevada. She's an alumnus of UNLV. She has co-founded the art collective Eccentric Artists, which is a movement of creators working together to build an inclusive community that supports underrepresented voices and encourages them to connect, create, and collaborate. So thank you, Sam, and welcome. I'll have you take over and good luck.
Thank you so much, Veronica. I couldn't have asked for a warmer welcome. Thank you so much. She said, I'm Samantha, and let me get into our filmmakers so we can get going. So I'm just going to introduce the films in the order that they were in the program block. So from the short film, The Wrangler and the Serpent Queen, we have joining us Shane Mark Gallo, who was one of the co-writers and the director of the short. And we also have Mikayla Viloria, who is also one of the co-writers and the lead actress. And both of them can also talk to us a little bit about the process because they had many collaborators, many writers, directors. They all had their hands in all the different departments, so we can get into that. I'm excited to talk to you guys. Next, from TURF, we have Kiri Mitchell, who is the director, writer, and producer, the triple threat. Super excited to have you here. Next, we have from Biff Me, Nicola Rose, who was also the director, writer, and producer of her short, Amazing Feat. Thank you for being here. And then from the short film, The Good Balloon, we have Lita Lopez, who was the writer, producer, and lead actress. And from the short documentary film, Sex Sells, we have Dayna Lee, who is a co-director and producer, and Roger Glass, who is a co-director and cinematographer. So thank you all for being here. Such a talented group of people. I'm super excited to get to talk to you all about your shorts. And we also have another person joining us here from the Wrangler and the Serpent Queen. We'll let her get set up. But Alex Jaeger, welcome. You can join us whenever you're ready. But just to start out, I'd like to ask all of the filmmakers here, what was your main inspiration for creating your short?
I'll go first. This is my true story. So this is a story about my brother and finding hope amidst grief. And I always knew I would tell the story, but it took about 10 years to be ready to do it. And once I did, couldn't stop, I guess. So yeah, it came from, I've always been a writer and actor, have always aspired to produce, and this was just the story I most needed to tell to be like my debut production. So
that's amazing. Yeah, and from your short, the way that you balance the way that you can go from grieving to laughing to hurting all over again. It's really such a process, grieving, and I thought you captured that beautifully in your short film.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, it's a very long journey, never really ends. It just becomes more manageable and, just becomes part of a new normal. Yeah.
So with Sex Sells, I think without Dayna's determination on following that topic, we wouldn't have been able to honestly get this topic into this type of documentary that we made. And I think, Dayna, you have a pretty good backstory about it, why you wanted to pursue this particular topic.
Yeah, so I did some independent research in college on victims of trafficking and refugees, and that was more from like Eastern Europe to Western Europe. But then I wanted to do something more based in the US. And I started a documentary like maybe like 4 years ago. Yeah, like 4 years ago now, about sex trafficking, but I didn't really know where it was going. It was based in the Bay Area and I had subjects. But yeah, we didn't really know where it was going and it kind of never like came into fruition. And then this film was part of a community voices class, like a documentary class at Chapman. We're grad students at Chapman, or we were grad students at Chapman. So yeah, so I was like, well, the other documentary didn't come into fruition, but maybe I can use this as an opportunity to do something on the topic. And then one of the people that I reached out to when I was doing the first documentary suggested decriminalization of prostitution. So we just got into that through his suggestion.
Very cool. That sounds like a long journey to get to where you were, and I thought it was really powerful documentary. And perhaps when everyone has shared their inspiration about their film, I wanted to ask you about shooting in so many different places. So we'll come back to that.
Yeah, for sure.
I can talk about Biff and Me.
Yeah.
I was inspired to make the film for a few different reasons. One of them was just generally that I wanted to tell a story where absolutely everybody seemed like a trope, seemed like something we've seen 100 times before to begin with, and yet nobody behaved the way you expected them to behave in the end, and everybody subverted your expectations about them. Because I really appreciate stories like that, especially for comedy. Being surprised and pleased by how people turn around in the end or how they behave in the end is something that I really enjoy in entertainment. And I'm also, I've always really been drawn in the most general sense to stories about awkward people coming into their own and figuring out who they are and how to be that person. And this particular story had to do with, gender roles and expression of those. And that, it's an important topic right now, but it kind of just happened to be about that by chance, really. I saw another film that dealt with the same exact idea about a fictional, bad kid bully who had a feminine side. And it was such an interesting story, but it was dealt with in a heavy and dark sort of way. And it struck me that even though it was obviously a topic that had to be handled with sensitivity and, care, it was also something that was inherently very funny, and that you could use humor to tell a story like that and also make a real point that needed to be made about, having one life to live, and you might as well be yourself during that life. So all those things came together for that film.
Definitely. Yeah. And I really enjoyed your film because like figuring out who you are, it can be difficult. Like you were saying, it can be dark at times and hard, but it is a little funny because I think at some point you realize, oh, I've been this way the whole time. So why didn't I realize sooner? Like
there's all these things you don't realize about yourself that are already there, and they hit you later, and you're like, yeah, I had all the signs, but like we figure things out when we figure them out, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll leap in there if that's all right. My film was based on my response to doing my master's when I was doing my arts degree. And I'm a mature lady, and all the young people kept intruding on my space because I was sort of invisible, that sort of middle-aged lady invisible thing that happens. And the assumption that I would just be nice and polite and tolerate the intrusion. And so most of the characters are actually based on people. So it's my little right of reply and revenge, and a lot for my own amusement. And also too, taking reference points, like there's films are referenced all through the film that have to do with placing me in an age group. like Ripley from Aliens, and a British character in a detective story called Vera, who always wears a hat and a shapeless detective's jacket and is sort of sexless. And so it was a playful sort of right of reply, perverse revenge.
Yeah, it was very cool. Yeah, it was very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will come back to you. I really want to ask you some questions, but Shane, Mikayla, Alex, if you could let us know about Wrangler and the Serpent Queen. What was your guys' inspiration, stuff like that?
I feel like we should have Mikayla answer this, or Alex. They had like the premise of going with the Medusa themed kind of storyline here.
Yeah, so I'm sure we'll get into this later, but this was a submission for a film competition in which there are prompts that were given. So we didn't come into the competition really having any idea what we were going to be given. And then when we got our prompts, we had like a momentary freak out, like, this is impossible. But we were able to, we kind of started thinking about like Medusa and fairy tales and those puppet shows where the light shines and it just shows the shadow. And we kind of rolled with that. And I think it worked in our favor. And I think it was as well as it could have with all those like absurd prompts.
Yeah, like you said, when we initially got those prompts, we wanted to redraw, or we were like completely unsure of how we were going to go about it. And so we came up with the whole concept of Medusa because the character we were given was the snake wrangler. And so I don't know how, but we associated, snakes and came up with the idea of Medusa, and then kind of wanted to turn that story on its head. And then the idea for like the shadow puppets was because we got stop motion. Was that it?
Yeah, we got stop motion.
Yeah. And, knowing anything about stop motion, we were like, that's not something that we can do in the allotted time. Like, how are we can't do like claymation. We can't, that's such a difficult craft.
Yeah, a technique we did not know how to do.
Yes, exactly.
But I had an idea of how to do like puppetry in that sense, because I used to watch on YouTube, I forgot who the artist was, but they're using sand, like shooting light like from below, and I got that like inspiration from that, I remember, and during the process to like shoot puppetry in that way. And yeah, for the chase scene, I always wanted to do a chase scene. I don't know.
Very cool. Lita wants to know, and I'm sure all of us want to know, what were all of the prompts that you guys were given? Like, what were the parameters that you had?
We had our line of dialogue was what was the line, Alex?
It was, I'm no good at rhyming. I'm terrible at timing.
Yeah, that was it. And then,
so that was the line of dialogue. Yeah.
And our character was a snake wrangler. Our object was
a storybook, or a really big book.
A really big storybook, and our genre was stop motion. But sorry, this was like a year ago.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. And just so everyone here knows, Shane, Mikayla, Alexandra, and I all went to the same college, so I know the competition that they're talking about. It's very difficult. You have 48 hours to make something out of whatever you get, and you just kind of see what happens. And I'm really impressed by my friend's work, because you guys made something really incredible. And with that, Kiri, I want to talk to you about your stop motion, and you made a 10-minute long short. How long did it take you? What was your process like creating your film?
So I think this is like the third film that I've made. I make the characters first, And it sounds sort of a bit weird, but I hang out with them for about 6 months in my house. So we get to know each other. Because when I'm making the characters, I'm imbibing them with personalities, and I have to think about how I want to animate them to demonstrate that, because I'm a one-woman show. And then I actually dedicated a room in my house. In New Zealand, we have the luxury of, you can rent a house, and my daughter has to share my art making, and I created a studio, and it took me, I think, maybe about a year, because I'm animating, and you can see it's not fluid. I rely very heavily on gesture, and the audience fills in the gaps and forgives me, because it's sort of surreal and mad. So yeah, probably a year and a half, I think.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think what you were saying about not having fluid moments, I think it does aid in the feeling that you get from watching it. It helps with the tone, and it is a little unsettling though, because your brain does fill in the gaps, because it's very cool. I've really enjoyed your short, and I really enjoyed your style. It's very cool.
Oh, thank you. This is very exciting for me. This is the first time I've got into a film festival, so I feel really honoured and excited that somebody could see and appreciated what I'd done. So it's exciting to be part of something. So thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. That's an amazing feat. Working on one film for a year and a half, just hacking like away little by little.
Dog with a bone.
Yeah, that is so inspiring. So thank you so much for,
Thank you. That's great. Cool.
And then with Wrangler and the Serpent Queen, you guys talked a little bit about your stop motion. How long did it take you guys to do all of your stop motion sequences?
I would say in total, maybe like, I don't know, 20 hours? I don't know, maybe more or less around there.
It was definitely less than 2 days because of the time restriction. So I know you mentioned the 48-hour festival. It actually was changed this year because of COVID, and to accommodate for on-set restrictions, they wanted everybody, and especially actors, on screen to remain 6 feet apart. They gave us 6 days this year.
Oh, I see. I remember that. Sorry, I graduated. I'm out of the loop a little bit. But okay, yes, so 6 days altogether. But yeah, I mean,
COVID guidelines. So
yeah, and that I think that's really clever.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think it was really, really clever what you did with your characters, requiring, like, they had to wear masks anyways because it was shot during COVID. But I felt like the mask worked with the characters and like the world that they lived in. It made sense.
Yeah, we tried to make sure that it made sense with their costumes, and since they were already, these storybook characters, I feel like we made it work in a way that was believable. And then same thing with Alex's character as like the narrator and the little girl. We just didn't show their faces so that they're kind of more just a
like
little
background.
Yeah, not as much of the focus, kind of
mysterious and ambiguous.
And then I guess we kind of lucked out getting stop motion in the end, because that really helped us for scenes we needed contact between those two characters. That was kind of the route that we used.
Very cool. So Lita, I wanted to ask you about your short. So you're the lead actress and the writer and producer. Is it hard to wear all of those different hats? Do you wear them all at the same time? Do you have to do the real fast switch over? Like, what is your process like on set when you have that many jobs?
Great question. Yes, you can only wear one hat at a time. I realized, which is also why I did not want to direct it either. Like, that would have been way too much. I needed someone with more experience. I didn't want to have that responsibility as well. So I had a really good rapport with my director, where she would also be like, okay, now you're actor, take off, she would literally say that, you know, take off your producer hat, you're just my actor right now, we're just focusing on that. So yeah, you have to, you know, compartmentalize. I think we did pretty well with pre-production, so that a lot of things were ready to go in advance, so that once we got to set, I could just be an actor. Yeah. There was the third day, so we did 3 days of shooting. The third day was all of just the balloon chasing through the streets. That day was a challenging day, where it was kind of, because we also had a really skeleton crew that day, just because we were going to be mobile, and we're doing a little bit of guerrilla shooting that day. So that day was kind of, I was everything at once, and it was challenging. but I also had a lot of really great support. My unit production manager is a great friend of mine, who also wore a million different hats. We should have given him the credit balloon Wrangler as well, because he was doing a lot of puppeteering of the balloon. But yeah, just having support, you know, you've got to know when to delegate, and know your team, and have the right team with you, because if I hadn't had the support on the day, it would have been a lot more difficult.
Yeah, and shout out to your balloon Wrangler, honestly, because that balloon is like a character of its own. It's got its own mind and own personality. So
and it did. There were times it got caught in a tree a couple times. It got caught up on top of a building, and like, I don't know how, because we also ran out of helium that day. So we were kind of limited. We only had, you know, 1 hero balloon at one point. And there was a moment where it was like caught up on top of this building, and just somehow through patience and grace and God and my brother watching over, he was able to get it untangled and back down. And yeah, but it definitely was its own character, and had a mind of its own.
That's so funny. Nicola, I'd like to ask you kind of the same question. You were the director, writer, and producer on Biff Me. How did you juggle all those responsibilities? Did you find yourself like having that support like Lita's talking about? What was your experience?
You know, I felt as though those things were fairly separated from each other. I was lucky. My previous film, I had not planned nearly as well. And, you know, each one is different. The constraints on it are different. And Biff was my 4th film, so I felt as though I had learned a thing or two by then. And I was very, very lucky. By the time Biff got to production, I was, you know, my neuroses were going full force, I think. I was like, I gotta start planning this thing like 6 months ahead of time. And honestly, a film that size, it's a 14-minute film. It's not a feature film. It doesn't need, you know, that much planning, but you know what? It turned out to be a good thing. Honestly, you can't overplan them. You can certainly underplan them very easily. I don't think you can overplan them. And so, you know, the writing, obviously that happens, and you may tweak all the way through to production, but for all intents and purposes, you're done. And then the producing happened for those 6 months. And the fact that I had planned so much meant that by the time it came time to direct, the producing really was, you know, except for the odd thing that had to be done at the last minute, because that production always throws you curveballs. It really was not too difficult. There are films that can be extremely difficult, but I really was a one-woman band as far as the putting of that particular film together. And I just got very lucky with our timing and a lot of, you know, just a lot of good fortune.
It's awesome. And I think it's reflected in your short. There's you can tell that there was thought put into it, and the time that you took to plan really paid off.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
course. And Roger and Dayna, your short documentary, Sex Sells, you guys went to so many different places. Was that you guys personally going to each of these locations and interviewing people? What was the process like, and how long did it take you to make this short?
So, so when it came to the locations, Dayna actually went to every single location that was there. For me, I went to a few of the other locations, like the California location, the Kansas City location. But the way, and Dayna, I think you can talk a little bit more about how the outreach happened. But there was a lot of going back and forth with a lot of different people. So many people really wanted to talk about the stories, but as it came to getting time to production, they would back off because they were afraid of like what the feedback would be like. And so we had to
Mhm.
find, or Dayna had to find other people that we could talk to and learn the stories from.
Yeah, I think finding this people who could talk to us was one of the most challenging things. But the way we got so many different states and was because um as a producer, I just went through a lot of articles and did a lot of research on people involved with the decriminalization of prostitution debate, whether through NGO work or if they're like former or current sex workers. And it was just like reading articles, finding names, and like searching the names if they had contacts. So we had like maybe like 80 contacts that we like a list of 80 contacts, and reached out to all of them and just see like who was willing. And so we got 8 people who are willing out of those. And they were just located in different places across the country. So we're like, okay, we'll use this. Well, because it's so hard to find people, we'll definitely use this as an opportunity to travel and to talk with each person. But yeah, we like a lot of our team, like some people went on some shoots, some people went on other shoots. Since I was producing, I went to all the shoots just to oversee and stuff. But everyone was involved with some of the shoots at least.
That's very cool. It's um for me at least, when working on sets, it can feel like your little family and you guys are in your own little world when you're on production. So to have so many different locations and so many different sets and stuff like that must have been exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool. Okay, so I have another question presented to all of you. Whoever wants to go first, feel free. But what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced while creating your film?
I think for Sex Sells, one of the biggest challenges was actually getting access to the different individuals, like what Dayna was just talking about. And then I think even Dayna, what do you think about like even how the topic changed a little bit as we were going through pre-production, and how we kind of had one set idea that we wanted to follow this one specific individual up in San Francisco, I believe, but over the course of pre-production, the whole story changed, and we basically spread to different topics within the issue that we were focusing on.
Yeah, I also, yeah, it was hard because we tried, like Roger said, we tried to get access to like 1 or 2 people in the beginning, and then they weren't giving us access. So then we had to reach out to a lot of people. And even if when we found people, it was like, are they going to like how much access can we get with the people we had? Like how much can we film? This issue, like a lot of their stories were in the past. So it was hard to so we would interview them, but it's like beyond interviewing, what else can we put in? So we used a lot of like b-roll from like YouTube, and we found a lot of like stock footage and stuff that we put in, and used our locations, like the fact that we had so many different locations. We used like different scenery from each location to make it vary and stuff. But yeah, it was getting the access. And what was the other thing you said, Roger? There was the
story, and how the story changed
oh
from
yeah,
the very beginning in pre-production, as when we're going through pre-production and getting the green light, that the story sprouted into these different directions, and then we found it.
yeah. So like first it was more of the personal account, then it was about like decriminalization, partial decriminalization, all the different sides of the debate, and then that was getting very technical and no one was really understanding. So then we made it again more personal, so we went from like personal to technical to personal. Yeah,
that's very cool. Very interesting how sometimes you can go in with one idea and then you come out with something different. Anyone else? Challenge, what was your greatest challenge that you may have faced?
Like we mentioned before, it was, we didn't really have a lot of stop motion experience. So, we were kind of, we experimented with like the style at first on one night and just, saw how it went. And we're like, we had like an idea at that point. And so we went all the way with that. And just, the COVID guidelines that we had to, get over. I feel like that was a thing we were like, had a different ideas going back and forth, and like we just had to be mindful of like keeping 6 feet apart, like on set and like in our scenes, and using like the masks and having the idea of like not showing the faces and how we're going to capture that like during the scene. And I think it all worked out with everyone's collaboration and everyone inputting their ideas. So yeah.
And I think on top of that too, like the pretty quick turnaround, like from just from writing all the way to like the edit was challenging, because like we were pretty much just like working nonstop for those 6 days. We were in Rising Sun Studios, like Timmy's studio, just like editing as fast as we could with it still looking legible and good.
Yeah.
And then also, since it was like a quick turnaround, like finding crew and cast within like such a short period of time. I mean, myself and Timmy ended up acting, and then of course like Alex, and then Shane's cousin actually was.
Oh yeah.
So we just kind of were pulling from wherever we could as quick as we could.
Yeah. And yeah, shout out to Timmy. Like he was grinding the edit like so quick and like so masterfully. Like the last night, like hours before it was due, with the sound design. Like even on set, he was having sound like Mikayla and Alex and Christina had to step up and do sound. They don't really do sound, but they learned on the fly. They did what they had to do, and I'm thankful for them.
For me, I'll jump in. The biggest challenge was just the fact that this was my own story, and the emotional toll that takes to go back to a really dark place, but then find the hope and the light. So it was a roller coaster of emotions. I would do it again. I'm grateful I knew I needed to, I wanted to tell a story about mental health and grief and raise awareness, because these are things that almost all of us experience, and we don't ever talk about it. You hide those things away. So I wanted to get it out there in the open. But then there was a period, it was a great huge high of being on set, and then there was the big crash afterward. So I wasn't expecting the crash afterward. So that was challenging. But therapy.
Yes.
Everyone get therapy.
Yes.
I wouldn't have made the last festival I just did earlier today was a mental health suicide awareness film festival. And we talked about that too. And it's just something I had done prior. Since my early 20s, I started therapy, and I've done it periodically throughout my life as needed. But I highly recommend it, especially to people in the arts, because we're all emotional and creative, and this is a business filled with rejection and high hopes and grand disappointments. So take care of your mental health. That's
definitely. Yes, that is a great message. And yes, therapy is important, and I should be destigmatized. Like, you shouldn't feel bad or ashamed for needing therapy. I've gone to therapy, not to overshare, but that's what it's about, right? It's about being able to feel open and to share these experiences with people, because it can sound like a big scary thing, like therapy, like I don't know, but it's really it's a really helpful avenue, especially as a creative, as you were saying, as an artist, just to have like an unbiased person that you can talk to with no expectations, no anything, you know.
A safe space. They don't have any skin in the game other than to just help you talk it out. So
Yep. All right. I am getting a message that we have about 5 minutes left. So Nicola, Kiri, is any thoughts about the challenges that you faced?
I'm always sort of slightly embarrassed to describe my challenges. I'm quite a large woman, and working in a studio with little figures is really challenging because your body parts get in the way all the time. Consistently, that's the challenge that I find the most, is trying to negotiate my body in a small space with little figurines. But there's obviously a masochist inside of me because I keep going back for more. And the rest of it is just grit and determination. Obviously, like I say, I'm a dog with a bone, and the fact that I continue to torture myself means that I enjoy it. But it's always the physicality of engaging with these little figures, which I always find I have to try really hard to go to a zen place so that I can deal with the how time consuming it is.
I've been trying to come up with a good answer for you. Unfortunately, I should let you know I'm on set right now as I speak. It looks like I'm in a bedroom, and I am, but it's a set bedroom. I'm on a set filming my first feature, and as a result, thank you. As a result, I cannot remember one single challenge or thing that happened during production of Biff Me. I will just be honest. I can remember just barely a couple of things from this current production, and that's it. I think Biff Me was an extremely easy production. Honestly, there are some things I can remember from further back. When I think of that one, I just remember how well everybody in the cast got along, in the team got along, and I remember spending a lot of time laughing. If you look at the behind the scenes, I mean, I'm sure it was difficult because they all are, but if you look at the behind the scenes photos from that shoot, what you see is everybody laughing at everything all the time, and you can tell we had a good time. I'm sure there were challenges. I'm sure if I had the actors here, they would talk about the challenges of, embodying those characters. I know that Biff in particular was a really difficult character to embody because he had to be so cartoonishly hyper, masculine, and on the other hand, he had to be so sensitive and also able to dance. And we had this kid who was so able to embody all those things, and I thought that was really remarkable.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, that's so funny that you talk about you're already on your next project. So I wish we had more time because I would love to keep talking to all of you and hear about what's next for everybody. So if you want to give me like a one sentence, what's next? I really want to know what you guys are up to. So go for it.
I'm working on an anthology feature about bisexuality. 3 different stories.
Yeah, awesome.
That's very cool.
Thank you. It's called The Voice Within, so look out for it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I will be on the lookout.
So for me, I'm working on a bunch of different freelance projects, but one of them is actually a reality television project down in Texas.
I'm making a stop motion at the moment. They're pink crocodiles jelly wrestling, and it's about spectacle, just for fun.
Awesome. That's awesome.
I am finally finishing my short that got postponed due to COVID, which I'm really excited about. And then I'm also acting and writing for a show that I don't know if I'm allowed to say very much about, so I'll leave it at that.
I wrote a book during COVID, or I finished a first draft of a book that I actually started about 20 years ago about the taming of the shrew. So that is what I'm doing, and I'm my next goal is to get it published. So wish me luck on that.
That is awesome. Yes, good luck.
Thank you.
All right, Shane, Alexandra, anything in the works before we head out?
Nothing. I mean, I've been doing mostly acting lately. Nothing really, in terms of crew. Just like little shorts here and there for anyone who reaches out to ask, pretty much.
I'm done with film. No. Just need to write some stuff, get my ideas together.
Very cool. All right. Well, wonderful job, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me and talking to me. I wish I could talk to each of you forever about your films because I enjoyed them that much. And I hope that everyone watching this Q&A got a lot out of this. I hope you did. I know I did. Thank you guys all for being here. You are all such talented and wonderful filmmakers, and I can't wait to see what is next for all of you.
It was an honor being
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
congratulations
you.
to everyone. Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you. Lovely films. Amazing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Everyone have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.